Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, Battle Mountain. I'm so happy to see some of your faces. We had no idea when we were doing this if anyone would show up on a Thursday afternoon, but we're thrilled that you are here. I am Cynthia Mohuden with the Rural Nevada Democratic Caucus. And before we begin, I want to ask, is there anyone in the audience who is a registered Democrat and running for local office here in Lander County? Nope. Okay. Next, we do have a guest with us from the Nevada Forum Project, Chris Miller. So I'll give him a minute to introduce himself and tell you about the Nevada Forum.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Devin. And let's give all these candidates a round of applause for being here. It's not easy to put your name on a ballot. My name is Chris Miller. I am here representing the Nevada Forum. The Forum is an opportunity for Nevadans from all across the state, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a nonpartisan, or even a non-voter, to go online to nvforum.org and tell us, what do you want fixed in the state of Nevada? Very short, very quick survey. We have over 20,000 people that have visited our site. We have over 500 ideas. We're going to take those ideas in the next couple weeks. We're going to categorize them. Then you can go back online and vote for the ones you like and what you want to see done. Then we're going to do some in-person and online meetings with representative citizens from across the state. Again, Democrats, Republicans, nonpartisans, and non-voters. And we're going to come down to a civic assembly in the end of August, where we're going to get 50 to 75 Nevadans to talk about all these issues and come up with one issue to take a citizens bill to the Nevada Assembly in 2027. So go online, nvforum.org, have your voice be heard. And again, thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thanks, Chris. And I apologize, I was remiss. I did not introduce Devin Doan, chair of the Rural Nevada Democratic Caucus, the lovely man to my left, who we could not do this without, my bad. And also Marie Bledsoe, our secretary. She's got some surveys. She may have already hit you up, but she will definitely check in with her. She keeps all of us in line and everything running smoothly. So thank you to them as well. All right, finally, let's get started as to why we're here today. We have a large number of folks who took the leap and are running for office to be your Nevada Democratic nominee for Nevada Congressional District 2. This is the most exciting primary I think we've had in a very long time. And this is our second spot. We're really happy to have all 9 of them here today. Immediately to my right is Teresa Benitez Thompson. To her right is Gamael Enriquez. To his right is Greg Kidd. Then Josh Airbay. Abear, sorry. Kathy Durham, Mark Jolly, Matthew Fonkin, Morgan Wadsworth, and finally Samuel White. So the candidates have not been given the questions in advance. They were at the Winnemucca Library yesterday, and I asked 4 questions. The 4 questions today will be different, so you're going to get something special just for Lander. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer, and due to the number of candidates, we will only have the 4 questions. The candidates will then at the end have 2 minutes to offer their own closing statement. It's the free-for-all. They can tell you whatever they think you ought to hear. And they're certainly here. This is a small forum. Feel free to come up and introduce yourself if you haven't done so already to your favorite candidate or 2 or 3. So without further ado, we'll get started. Okay, question 1 today has to do with affordability. The term has become a very popular term. Mondami got elected mayor of New York City as a result of campaigning heavily on this issue. He had specific proposal that he is now implementing in New York City. It is going to be a much tougher row to hoe in Congress. I would like each of you to identify a specific affordability issue and your proposal for legislation that will directly impact the issue of affordability for your constituents here in rural Nevada. Teresa, you're up first.
All right, thank you so much. So yes, affordability has become a buzzword, but I think if you're anything like me, it's just the matter of fact of your life and how you live. And so depending on your perspective, what you're experiencing now might be different people to people. So if you are retired and you've been retired for the past decade, you did the math a decade ago to see what you could afford, and things might not be penciling out for you. So a good example would be my mom in the city of Reno. She's got an apartment, a studio apartment that she's renting, and it's $1,600 a month. $1,600 a month. That was nothing that we figured when she was trying to retire a decade ago. If you're like me, I'm a mom with 4 kids, and so when I go to the grocery store, I start having a little bit of a flutter in my heart because I get nervous. I watch the prices go up and up. I look at my receipts from my last shopping trip and looked at my receipts a year ago, and things just get more expensive. The cost of gas, the cost of diesel. So these are the realities we're facing. The solutions. So one, we need to restore our social safety net. This administration in particular has made tremendous and devastating cuts to our social safety net. Things like food assistance programs. I met with the food bank last week to talk about cuts that they've been experiencing and the dramatic increase in the number of people seeking out food banks across Congressional District 2. I'd also restore the cuts that were made to Medicaid. 30,000 Nevadans are about to lose health care because of changes this administration has made on Medicaid. Lastly, affordable housing. Last week, I met with the Affordable Housing Coalition to talk about what they need from their congressional representative, what they need to have happen, and that's a conversation that needs to happen all the time. That's not a one-off. I've actually been working on affordable housing legislation while I was in the state legislature. So those are the 3 specific things that I would tackle right out of the gate.
Thank you, Teresa. Camille?
Affordability, the high cost of everything, is a universal challenge for everyone. This is why what sets me apart from every single candidate here is that I am running on a bold, unapologetic, universal economic platform from cradle to grave with a universal basic income, a freedom dividend, just like Alaska has had for the last 50 years, $1,300 transferred to everyone, paid for by the billionaires that do not pay their fair share. Tesla, Amazon, the mining industry. Trump, we have to accept and look at the data that he won not once but twice because he was able to feel the affordability and high cost of everything. We know that he was full of bullshit in terms of actually delivering, but that's why he won. And if we do not address the elephant in the room, we will continue to have MAGA Republicans take advantage of these incremental, moderate policies that divide and conquer and only set the stage for further American fascism. This is why I want to place $1,300 into the pocket of every Nevadan. We haven't even talked about DOGE, the tax cuts, the multiple shutdowns, or automation, artificial intelligence, and the 50 years of economic turmoil that we have.
Thank you. You guys are gonna get used to that, it's automatic. The candidate's still working on it. Greg, you're up, thank you.
Thank you. So first, I do agree that the social net has to be restored. Healthcare costs are just, we're already unaffordable, and the cutbacks in Medicaid need to be reversed. We need a single payer system. Money and healthcare shouldn't be in the same sentence. More broadly, the tax system we have in Nevada is very regressive. By that I mean, whether it's 7 or 8%, it's paid on everything, including a lot of basics. The tax system the sales tax system should be much more progressive. And so one of the ways to get wealthier people to pay more is tax luxury items at a much higher tax rate. I don't mean double or triple, but if you live in countries like Singapore, where a car is a luxury item, the tax is 175%. And so you can have no tax on basic necessities and very high tax on things that are luxury items that don't really add to the betterment of this country. I'm not against luxury, but it should pay. Along with that, the tariffs that we have are another form of regressive taxation on everyone, especially though people at the tough end of the economic ladder. So I would be for a repeal of all tariffs. And look, tariffs are not just a Republican issue. There were tariffs put in place or kept in place by the Democrats as well. Basically, they make our lives more complicated, more expensive, but they really bite for people that are at the tough end of the economic ladder. And so as a matter of policy, I would regain Congress's power and reassert and eliminate those tariffs so that basic input costs like the lumber that goes into housing is now mostly from Canada and experiences a big tariff. Finally, I would say we need labor from
Thanks, Greg. Josh, you're up.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that we can do on affordability right now. I agree with Greg that we need to repeal the tariffs that Trump has put in place because they're arbitrary and capricious and they're raising prices for people. But I do not believe that we should get rid of all tariffs. I think tariffs serve a purpose because we put a lot of work into having environmental and labor protections in this country. And I think that countries that do not have that should not have free access to our markets. Another thing that we can do is we can end mass deportation. That is raising the cost of housing, and it is raising the cost of food. It's insane to have this mass deportation policy in the middle of an affordability crisis. We absolutely, the number one thing for me in terms of affordability is healthcare. It affects so many people's lives in so many ways, especially in Nevada. But how do we get to a single-payer healthcare system? Because so many people have lost faith in the government that they don't believe that the government can provide that. So I think we can start focusing right now on making the VA a model healthcare system and show people that the government can do this efficiently and well so that we can sell single-payer healthcare to them and move that project forward. And finally, on affordability, the best long-term solution to affordability is good jobs at fair wages. And we get that by making it easier for labor to organize and to get a contract with these businesses that don't negotiate with them. So I support passing the PRO Act. We need to make it so that corporations have to negotiate. They can't just go for a whole year like Starbucks has done without negotiating everything. Having a stronger labor union movement in this country will make things more affordable for everyone long term. And I think Democrats need to be much stronger on this issue.
Thank you, Josh. Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Durham, and my answer is people over profits. We have returned to what I call the Gilded Age economics. The Gilded Age was the late 1800s, early 1900s, and what we have is a consolidation of industries that are driving everything up. So when we talk about affordability of food, you have 4 industries that own from seed to all the seeds, the fertilizer, and the growth, 4 companies. When you have your packaged goods, 4 companies. When you talk about your beef industry, 4 companies. When you talk about distribution in your stores, 4 companies. We are a free market or a mixed market economy, but the one thing that makes a mixed market economy work is what we call the invisible hand. Self-interest, incentive, and competition. But what we have done is eliminated competition for the most part in this country by allowing these anti-competition mergers to take place. So we need to have stronger regulation. We need to break up the monopolies, put people over profits. I agree, we need to strengthen the unions and allow all people, all workers to organize. Wages have stayed stagnant in this country since 1970, and the cost of living just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. I don't care if it's your health care, your food, your gas, your housing, It's all going up and the wages are not. We need to increase the minimum wage. And lastly, you know, everything in the food chain, everything in the supply chain depends on transportation. And when you go and get yourself into forever wars that are senseless wars and drive up the price of gas, everything is going to follow. People over profits.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark?
Hi, my name is Mark Jolly. I own a small business, and I grew that business big enough to be able to need a warehouse space. And when I went to go and get it, it's about a 2,000 square foot space, good for me. It fit all of our needs. And when we first started renting it out, $1,500 a month. At the end of 4 years, $1,800 a month, no problem. But then when I went to renegotiate that lease, $3,800 a month. Now, I told the guy there's no way we could afford doing that. So we were going to have to move. The guy actually told me, well, it would be a darn shame for you to have to close up your company. And I said, dude, my company's on wheels. We can be out tomorrow. I don't care. But the thing is, that unit is still vacant. It's been vacant for 8 months. The units around it are vacant. They've been vacant for longer. This whole unit was bought by private equity firms. The private equity firms are not tied to the rent that they get from these places. They are tied to the valuation of the property itself. And if they raise rents, the property value goes up. Now, this is just commercial, but this isn't just happening in commercial. This is happening in residential real estate too. Private equity firms need to be exposed for what they are doing. It's called principal beneficiary. I don't even know who I'm paying rent to because they can hide behind shell companies. So we need to have a vacancy tax nationwide. We do not build structures we don't use. That goes for houses that should be housing people and businesses that could be local and using these spaces. We also need to know who is benefiting from these. They should not be able to hide behind the opacity of shell company after shell company. I want to know if Blackstone is people who are doing this, and this has real effects for the people of my community.
Matthew?
This affordability crisis did not just happen this last year. It has been building for decades. I was affected majorly by it in 2008 during the recession. I lost my job that paid my way through college. I fed my dog and myself by volunteering to dishwash to get food to take home to feed ourselves. This is not a new thing for a lot of families across this nation. We need to be breaking up monopolies across the board. I mean, I grew up in Arkansas. I saw firsthand small businesses, downtowns, destroyed by Walmart. This has been happening across our nation, and Walmart was just the beginning. Tyson Foods comes in and continues to take over every single meat market across the nation. And so many other companies doing the same thing, consolidating and consolidating and consolidating. This is continuing to drive up prices because there's no competition. We need to be strengthening small businesses. We need to make sure that we're taxing billionaires, and not just taxing them, but closing off the loopholes for the deductions that they get away with not paying into our revenue. This is a major issue that most folks aren't paying attention to. This is how we bring down prices, by creating competition and making sure there's fair prices. Now, on top of that, yes, we are losing jobs to AI. We need to be making sure that AI and those folks that are running it are held responsible for the lack of those jobs, and making sure that we are not losing them, bringing up livable wages, raising the minimum wage, because $15 sure as hell isn't enough, and we're not even there yet on a federal level. So let's get real. Let's get someone elected to Congress who's going to fight for the people, who's experienced these issues, and is willing to fight for them.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan?
Yeah, so I think everyone here has really good ideas, and I agree with everyone, but I really want to also talk about, especially for my generation, housing is a huge issue. I think it's projected that a little bit over half of Gen Z will never be able to own a home with how things are going. So we do really need to tackle the massive private equity and corporations buying up the homes. I do agree with a vacancy tax. I do agree with breaking up, big monopolies and strengthening our small businesses. But more than that, we're also being really crushed by student loan debt, by prescription drug costs, and I think that we need to put caps on prescription drugs. We need to have student loan forgiveness, and I also think that we need to raise the federal minimum wage, and we really need to focus on making corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. The amount of loopholes that they have is ridiculous. And we've had 50 years of trickle-down economics, and it is not working. I think it's time to, say that it's not working, and it's time to do something different, and to, really invest in our small businesses, really invest in our future generations by, putting these policies into action.
Thank you, Morgan. Samuel?
So 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And what we need is beyond just a minimum wage, we need price fixes in ways that are not going to see that minimum wage constantly forever trying to catch up, which is why we need to be supporting public housing, we need to be supporting public options for healthcare, such as like Medicare for All, and those being funded by taxes on wealth, not taxes on the income of the wealthy, but taxes on their physical wealth, as they've been concentrating wealth through monopolization, through the accumulation of assets year over year, making it impossible for affordable housing, for affordable healthcare, for affordable food. You go to the grocery store and 90% of everything there is owned by 3 companies. So we need public options, I think, in our grocery stores as well, that are publicly funded to keep those prices down. If you want to talk competition, when the companies have to compete with the rest of us and public options, they have no choice but to keep their prices low, because those public options are not going to raise at anywhere near the scale that privatization is going to cause things to go up. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Samuel. Do you mind being my mic runner today? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Our next question is about the Supreme Court. There has been credible evidence presented that members of the Supreme Court have received significant gifts from wealthy donors who have business before the court, Clarence Thomas being the most glaring example. What, if anything, do you think Congress can and should do about this? Teresa, you're first.
Thank you so much. So following the Supreme Court has been not only a hobby of mine of late, but professionally, it was one of my job task duties when I was with the Office of Attorney General, and for the 3 years that I worked there. So tracking the Supreme Court, watching oral arguments, and I've come to actually really love listening to oral arguments. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen on birthright citizenship. I was absolutely dancing over the tariff decision that came out of the Supreme Court, mostly because it proved that a little state like Nevada can punch above its weight. We were only one of 12 states that sued the Trump tariffs, the illegal IEEPA Trump tariffs, and the Supreme Court found them to be illegal. And so we in Nevada, our little state, we had a big hand in what was happening with the international economy. That was my little moment of proudness there. But it is easy. I do not know why the Supreme Court does not impose upon itself ethical rules and, quite frankly, sanctions or consequences for violations of those ethical rules. It's the easiest thing. Every other public body in government, from your local city council to your county commission to your state legislature, we all have really hardy ethical bodies we have to answer to. And the Supreme Court does not have serious ethical reviews. They do not have serious consequences for violations of ethics, and they need that. They need that very easily. They need an independent body that would look at and make those decisions, because they can't be their own bellwether for what's right and wrong. And so it's a very easy structure to stand up, and it is long overdue.
Thank you. Damian.
two solutions. Number one, we need to make sure that there are term limits. Number two, we need to draw inspiration from other levels of court systems in our country, the federal district courts, because they have a lot more ethical rules than, ironically, the Supreme Court. And it is beyond me how these Supreme Court justices and their spouses have been able to become corrupted by many billionaires over decades. That clearly shows that we have a set of rules for the 99% of us, which are very different for the ultra wealthy in this country. And that is very much destroying our democracy. So we have to look at term limits, and we also have to look at the best practices from district courts across the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelle. Greg?
I agree about the term limits. I also think the Supreme Court has a process called recusal. So if you're involved in an issue personally, you have to recuse yourself from the decision. So if there is any question whether a Supreme Court justice has received some sort of influencing contribution or lobbying, they should be forced to be recused from any issue, anywhere remotely related to that issue. So it would make anybody who's intending to influence a Supreme Court justice have exactly the opposite effect, because they'd lose that justice on their issues. I do believe that Supreme Court justices should have an impeachment process. So if there is an ethical breach, there should be a process so you can have a Supreme Court judge removed. I do think Democrats need to be really strategic going forward. It's really terrible how we got into this 6-3 situation. And so we need to take back the Senate. We need to elect or nominate candidates that would not ever think about doing what Justice Thomas has done. So we need to win the Senate. We need to put in term limits, and we need to be able to impeach justices that violate the ethical standards of the office. And in the meantime, any issue for which they've received money or influence, they should be forced to recuse themselves from those issues when they're in front of the bench. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh?
So yeah, we have huge ethical problems on the Supreme Court. Beyond saying we should impeach them, because we already can. That is the power the federal government has. It's just a dead letter because we can't get anything like that through Congress. We should just ban them from accepting gifts, period. I don't know why we're allowing our Supreme Court justices to accept gifts from anyone. They're supposed to be impartial. We absolutely need to have term limits. I think it should be 12 years, so it's falling in between the presidential cycles. If you assume somebody serves for 8 years, so the next president will be able to make selections. I also believe that we should expand the Supreme Court. We should expand the Supreme Court to 13 justices, one for each federal district. And then I would like to see each seat tied to each district, so that when a seat comes open in that district, then the judges of that district select a panel among their own members that the president can then choose from. So we're getting people who are respected justices from within their own district to serve on that seat. And that would help end this ridiculous politicization of the selection of Supreme Court justices. Because we've had the, I'm blanking on the name of that organization, the conservative organization that puts all of the justices on the Supreme Court.
Federalist Society.
The Federalist Society, thank you. Yeah, the Federalist Society. We've been getting all of these ideologues for so long. We need to stop this process and depoliticize the Supreme Court. I want to talk about the federal courts in general. We need to massively expand the size of the federal judiciary. We don't have enough judges right now. for the size of the docket. And if we can change the way that we select judges, I don't have a solution for that one yet. Change the way that we select justices to depoliticize that, then we can start depoliticizing our court system because it has gotten completely out of control.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, I agree with Josh. Our Constitution already has a policy in place. It's called checks and balances. And Congress has the right to approve and remove judges. Congress just needs to do its job. We have separation of powers. The judicial branch is not supposed to be part of the executive branch or enforcing and reinforcing the executive branch's policy according to the Federalist Society and these other influencing think tanks. We need to also make sure that we have a strong rule of ethics for judges to follow. There has to be transparency. One of the easiest ways to concentrate wealth and power is to allow the regulators to regulate themselves. And that's exactly what we have done with our Supreme Court. They get to decide whether or not one of them broke the rule or not. And nobody's holding anybody accountable. And that's kind of what it is the reason why we are where we are in this country right now, is we have lost the separation of powers. We are ceding all of the power to a single branch, and we are heading towards an authoritarian rule in this country. We need to reclaim our power. The branch of the government closest to the people is Congress. And Congress, we need to elect people that will go and do the work of the people, not the special interest, not the corporations, not the powers that be. The people are the powers that be, and that's what we need to do. We need to have Congress do its job. We, the people, need to keep the pressure on them.
Thanks, Kathy. Mark?
Okay, this is going to be a wild one. Yeah, you guys know. All right, 2 minutes. Okay, I think we should change the structure of how the Supreme Court works, period. This is going to require an amendment. Okay, try and follow me here. We dissolve it being 9 members. We then make it so that the 480-something plus federal judges that are across the United States would have to essentially serve jury duty every now and again. When a case comes up that would be a Supreme Court case, they are randomly selected, and they would have to, of course, recuse themselves. That is currently a rule. If they're found to not recuse themselves, they don't get selected anymore, and there's going to be some criminal penalties. But they serve this one case, and then there's a cooling off period for 3 years. That way, there is no chance that you're going to know who is going to be the judge on this case. There's no way that they can benefit from this. There's no, it's called capture. When you have incentives to be able to pay judges, and judges to be able to take that, that judge is captured. That has happened to our Supreme Court right now. If you randomize selection, one case each, cooling off period afterwards, just by the way the structure works, there is no capture. You don't have to worry about term limits. You don't have to worry about stacked Supreme Court. You don't have to expand it. It can work with a function that works a lot like the system that we already have for this, and it could be implemented with an amendment. Some of the stuff that we're talking about would require an amendment anyway. I'm just saying this works better. And come and ask me about it if you got any questions, because I know this is a wild take, but you know, it's cool.
Thanks, Mark. Matthew?
Supreme Court makes major decisions that affect all of our lives. I remember Don't Ask, Don't Tell being repealed. I remember marriage equality being approved through the Supreme Court, right? And right now we've got cases where the Supreme Court just essentially legalized, I don't know why I'm messing up on this one, but conversion therapy for the LGBT community, right? They just essentially said, this is legal, you should do it. And now we're still waiting for the birthright citizenship, which is and so many other issues, right? These are the things that the Supreme Court makes decisions on that changes and shapes our futures. It shapes the differences in our lives. The woman's right to choose is now no longer the law of the land due to the Supreme Court justice rulings. And a lot of this is because of the corruption throughout our entire government. This is why I'm proud to be a balance and accountability candidate with Take Back Congress, where one of the 5-piece pledge is to make sure that we have an enforceable code of ethics on the Supreme Court justices. And this is something that we can be doing through Congress with our levers of power that you've heard the other candidates talk about. This is real, this is something we can do, and we just haven't had folks serving in Congress that have the fortitude to stand up for the people and do what's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Josh and Kathy as well. I also think Mark's idea is very interesting. We definitely need to have ethical oversights. We need to be banning gifts to the Supreme Court. Not entirely sure why we ever allowed that to happen and for so long. When it comes to the Supreme Court or being a judge in general, the whole point is to be an objective force. And we've gotten so far away from that and for so long. And it's kind of ridiculous. I definitely think we need to have term limits, and I think that we need to have stronger impeachment and recall processes, not just for the Supreme Court, but honestly for a lot of our elected officials. It is ridiculous that we can allow these people into office and then the entire country kind of has to just wait for a new president or wait for the midterm elections to, hope that we can make change with all these insane things that are going on, and it really is weakening the power of the people and what we have over the government. And I definitely want to see the Supreme Court expanded as well, and I think that will play a huge role in kind of balancing what we're seeing going on with the Supreme Court.
So I think we need to definitely be addressing the ethics issues in the Supreme Court. I believe it should be expanded, and I believe that we should be having term limits on the Supreme Court appointees. But I think what it all comes back to is that accumulation of wealth that's in the hands of a very small amount of people, giving them an inordinate amount of power over everything in our government, in our private businesses, in our lives, and we need to be focusing on wealth taxing these people so that they cannot sit there and accumulate, and have the ability to present these absurd gifts and to present these loopholes and ways to influence people who should be serving the people of the United States. And without those kinds of regulations and those kinds of limitations on the amount of wealth that these people can accumulate, it will just continue to be an issue that they're going to be influencing our politics and the people who should be working for us.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, next question. You guys are moving through this really quickly and efficiently today. No one wants to hear the air horn again, do they? Okay, next question. Are you willing to part ways and openly criticize Democratic House and Senate leaders if they fail to adequately push back against the Trump administration? Our Nevada senators, Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen, failed to join their, well, first it was, my bad. Senator Cortez Masto refused to join her colleagues in pushing for a shutdown. Nobody likes a government shutdown, but the GOP budget was aimed, among other things, at gutting health care for millions of people under the Affordable Care Act. And then, just yesterday, Senator Sanders introduced a piece of legislation to stop providing Israel with bulldozers to bulldoze people's houses in Palestine, in Gaza, and to stop sending bombs to Israel to kill Palestinians. Are you ready to openly criticize the party's own leaders if it has sometimes been the case that they are out of step with the majority of Democratic voters who want to stop the killing of Palestinians. Teresa, you get this one first.
So the actions that we saw happen yesterday, two specific actions that took place in Congress that we saw yesterday. There were actually a total of 3 in the Senate. So we saw Senate Joint Resolution 32. That's the one that specifically addressed bulldozers and not allowing the sale of bulldozers. That piece of legislation also required that the pieces of the Arms Control Act also be folded into the sale. So this is for any other country that we sell weapons to, how much are you selling, how are you selling them, where are they going to, what are they being used for? So kind of that information collection on the use of the weapons. So that was SCR 32. I would have voted in support of that. So SCR, the other one would have been SCR 33. That was the second resolution brought by Senator Sanders, and this was a limitation on a very specific type of bomb that could be bought with the money that would go over to weapon sales for Israel. And so I would have voted for that one as well. If you look at it, this is the 3rd set of such kind of stop the sale of bombs legislation that Senator Sanders has brought forth. And with each one, there's more and more support. The Pew Research Center tells us, but we already know because we feel it, right, that Americans across the board have lost confidence in Prime Minister Netanyahu. When Pew Research Center asked, do you have confidence that he will do the right thing for the world and for the safety of the world, 75+% of Americans said, no, we've lost confidence. What we need to have is confidence in our electeds, that they're going to be a new kind of voice and enforce and insist on a new kind of conversation that is happening. And I don't think that there's enough time to really say more than, yes, we need a new kind of voice.
Thank you. And you did it for the air horn. Okay, Demi.
As a result of all the progress that was made in the 1960s, the Lewis Powell memo, who was a Supreme Court justice, effectively wrote the Lewis Powell memo, which was basically a corporate takeover of our government. That resulted with the creation of the Federalist Society in the early 80s, the Horowitz memo in the late 80s, which was about disinformation around climate change. And that culminated in so many other examples, one of which is the Clinton administration in 1993 signed NAFTA the same year that the Clinton administration began to build the wall, because they understood that American workers were going to lose jobs just as Mexican workers, okay? I have a very clear record going back a decade of criticizing both major parties. The political spectrum in this country has been shifting to the right for decades. This is why we have officials that are dinos, Democrats in name only, right? This is why we have a demagogue in the White House that is an American fascist. This is why 2 years ago I was a lead activist for Nevada's ballot 3 measure, open primaries, top 5 ranked choice voting, because I saw the writing on the wall that we would effectively have a one-party system, and we need to open up other points of view. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Greg?
So Nevada is a purple state, and some of our representatives live in districts that actually voted for Trump, and they are trying to get reelected. In general, I support our congressional representatives voting their conscience and also listening to their representatives. I also remember a time in America where the most liberal Republican and the most conservative Democrat overlapped, and many issues had people from both parties voting for or against. I mean, there was a time when abortion wasn't a Republican versus Democrat issue. There were many Republicans that were pro-right, pro-choice, and voted for abortion. So I'd like to see Congress work where Congress people are, regardless of their label, voting their conscience and also voting what they think is in their best interests of their constituents. And I sure as hell expect them to get criticized for that by their people in their district. I don't expect them to always be 100% aligned with the people in their district because, you know, it is not a direct democracy. That's why we have things like the Electoral College and we have Congress. It is not mob democracy, it is representative democracy. And there are going to be times when your representative and the body politic disagree, or some noisy part. And so the Democratic's a very noisy family. I like that about the Democratic Party. And so there's going to be, like in a good relationship, when you have people still fighting, it's because they're fighting for the relationship, for the country they love, and for their district. But there's going to be noise, and I kind of like it. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Josh?
I am ashamed that Senator Cortez Masto and Senator Rosen voted to send arms and bombs and bulldozers to Israel so that they can continue to destroy Palestinian property and land and seize things from them. I don't think this is a difficult question. This is a moral issue for Democrats, and we need to stand up against what Israel is doing. I know we've been allied with Israel for a long time, but I don't really see what it's bringing us, and I don't want to be on the side of a government that is committing genocide and feels entitled to just seize land all over the place in some quest for a greater Israel. I think we need to cut Israel off. We need to stop sending arms to Israel. I will not vote for more funding for Israel. They are a false friend. And when it comes to criticizing our representatives, I believe that we do need to do that. They need to be held accountable to people within this party because they're supposed to be representing us. Right now, the Forest Service is being destroyed by the Trump administration in an extraordinarily illegal fashion. In the last budget, there were specific rules put in that would prevent the Trump regime from doing this. But they're going ahead with it anyway, and it is going to have a severe impact on Nevada. They're closing down a research station in Reno, and our forests will be ruled from Utah by a logging executive. And Senator Rosen and Senator Cortez Masto have to this day not said a single thing about it. The people in Congress, especially Nevada's representatives, need to be speaking up about this now. And I encourage you all to contact them and let them know.
Thank you, Josh. Kathy?
I'm a school teacher. Critique is part of what I've done for 26 years. I give instructions to students, I give them an assignment, and then comes the fun part of the assessment, and you have to give them feedback. There is critique of policy. We want to have lots of discussion about what is the best way forward. That's how democracy works. But then there are certain questions that it's not about was this the best answer or was this the best answer. It comes down to what's right and what's wrong. At the end of the day, when I go to Congress, I'm going to remember who it is I serve. That is you. And I will not be afraid to speak out when anybody in Congress, no matter what flag they fly, what color they wear, does something that I believe is morally wrong. We have to stand up for what's right and what's wrong in this country. Genocide is wrong. Bombing a country or threatening to eliminate a civilization off the face of the earth is wrong. I think part of the problem in politics today and in Congress today, and I've seen it myself, is organizations would rather make a choice or side with something because they think it will insulate them for their own personal power and position, rather than stand up and say, this is what is the right thing to do. Too many people are siding with power and wealth to save themselves. That's not who I am. So I will speak out when I see something wrong. I will speak out when I think something is right. And when there's a disagreement, this is the most important thing after calling things out, is making sure we explain to the people what happened and why.
Thanks, Kathy. Mark?
Am I willing to call out the Democratic leadership? Oh, yeah. I've been doing it for years. I am not happy with what the Democrats have been doing since the Clinton administration, when they basically threw in the towel and said, okay, we're going to just do Reaganomics just in a liberal sense. And they've just abandoned unions. They've been sideline spectators at atrocities that have been done by the conservative parties, and they haven't spoken up. I've written my Congress people, I've written my senators, and they've done nothing. And one of the reasons that I'm literally sitting here right now is because it wasn't working. I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. Yes, will I call them out? Absolutely. What's going on in Israel right now is a human tragedy that is going to be remembered years and years, decades along, and we are aiding it. Blood is on their hands for being a part of that. But there's other things too. The American flag is looked at as a threat in most of the world. Not my flag. It shouldn't be that way. And my taxes shouldn't be going to something that I'm going to personally feel like I have blood on my hands over. You are not there to occupy a seat and get comfortable. If you're comfortable, you're not doing it right. Yeah, you need to be able to stand up. You need to be able to say things loudly and with your whole chest. And I'm sorry, sometimes that isn't comfortable. Most of the time it isn't. But I don't see it coming from the people that I've elected. So fine, I'll do it.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew?
Could you repeat the question? I know it's a long one, but I want to make sure I'm on track with what the question was.
Of course. It gets harder when you get to the end of the line. Are you willing to part ways and openly criticize Democratic House and Senate leaders if they fail to push back against the Trump administration? Nevada Senator Catherine Cortez Masto refused to join her colleagues in pushing for a shutdown. Nobody likes government shutdowns, but the GOP budget was aimed, among other things, at gutting health care for millions of people under the Affordable Care Act. And then just yesterday, both Senators Rosen and Cortez Masto were among the Democrats that voted against Bernie Sanders' proposed legislation to stop bulldozers from going to Israel and bombs. And are you ready to openly criticize the party's own leaders, as has sometimes been the case when they appear to be out of step with the majority of Democratic voters who want to stop the killing of Palestinians?
Okay, that's what I thought the question was. Thank you. So, Matthew Fonken here. For those of you in the room who know, yes, I am definitely willing to stand up to party leadership. I've been doing it. And I've been doing it for the last decade by being participatory inside of the Democratic Party operations. You can't get things done, or at least I learned you have to try somewhere. And I thought, well, might as well start inside of the Democratic Party, work my way in, figure out how it works, and continue to try to make change. Well, along the way, I learned, well, you know what? If you're not bowing down and bending the knee and doing as you're told, you don't get to do anything, and you get sidelined and blacklisted. Oh, this is a real thing, by the way. Lack of work for at least 11 months because I stood up for what was right. Yes, I will speak out when it's wrong. When our party leadership decides that they're going to vote to make due process for immigrants in the nation to be not a process anymore. That was our entire federal delegation of Nevada, our 3 Democratic congressional leaders, as well as our 2 senators voted for the Laken-Riley Act back in early 2025 in agreement with this Trump administration, getting rid of due process. I would have stood up, and I did. I went to the Heart of Reno Dems meetings, I went to all the other meetings, and I made sure we were talking about it, that this was a bad vote. What they did yesterday, they want to continue to do this. sending arms to Israel is what they're saying. And you know why? Because of corruption. Because the money controls everything. This is why we need to ban stock trading from our representatives in Congress. Because Jackie Rosen specifically has arms dealings, stock trading with Israel and the arms. So yeah, stand up to party leadership every day.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
I mean, I feel like it's every day I wake up and our Nevada federal politicians have done something that nobody here, the majority of people here in Nevada do not agree with, do not want, and they don't really listen to us. And because they have massive amounts of money, it is very easy for them to continuously get reelected, and it is very difficult to challenge them. And it really is corruption, and I think we are seeing the Democratic Party become more controlled opposition than an actual opposition party. And that is because they are taking the same donors as the Republican Party, and 90% of Congress is taking AIPAC money, and they are all stock trading as well. And that's why, yes, I agree, money has to get out of politics. Stock trading has to get out of politics. Otherwise, we are not going to get anywhere. And we're just going to keep running into these same problems over and over and over again. And I would like to see the Democratic Party become an actual party of opposition and not just a Republican-light party, which is what they are. And it's very, very frustrating to see, especially as somebody who's younger, that we are just allowing them to do this over and over and over again. And we have to be able to call them out. We have to send people to Congress that will call them out and that will vote for the American people, not for their donors and not for the corrupt two-party system, which again, to me, it's more becoming this uniparty masquerading as two different parties. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And as far as Israel goes, yeah, absolutely, no more sending them money, no more sending them weapons. They are not doing anything for us, and we should not be helping them genocide an entire population in the Middle East. So,
thank you, Morgan. Sam.
So I'll just start with Israel is committing a genocide against Palestine, and we should not be funding that. The United States should never be funding a genocide anywhere in the world, regardless of who's committing it. As far as calling out leadership, calling out other Democratic members that are going against what the people actually want, yes, we need to be calling them out, and we need to be primarying them out of office. We should be supporting these. We should be supporting primary candidates who aren't taking corporate money, who are for the things that the American people are for. Things like universal health care, universal child care, bringing down housing costs, putting taxes on the wealthy. These things are things that everyone can agree on that we need to be doing, and we need representatives that actually will put forward that legislation, that will vote for that legislation, and if they won't, we need to get them out of office. And we should be supporting every effort to do that. Because right now, the people in office do not represent us. They haven't been, and they don't. We wouldn't be where we are now if they represented the people of the United States. And so we need to be focusing on efforts to pull them out of office.
Thank you, Samuel. This is our fourth and final question, so I was just asking, and then we'll have some concluding remarks. So, several candidates for CD2 have billed themselves as the anti-establishment group. The question then is, do you consider yourself anti-establishment, establishment, or something else in between, or just something else? It's your free to answer. In your answer, please define what these terms mean to you, and if you are receiving donations from any PACs, and if so, which PACs? Teresa.
I'm going to start off with a Taylor Swift quote. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I think when they say establishment, I've gotten to know every one of the candidates who's here, who's running. I like them tremendously. I think that anything that comes from this debate, of anything that comes from these debates and from this race, you should know you have committed Democrats who are very passionate, very caring about their communities. I look at this panel of people and I know we're all going to be around for a number of years doing really good work in our communities. I just happen to have been doing the work since I was 17. I knocked doors for my first candidate when I was 17. I ran for my first office when I was 29. I was the first, one of the first cohort of Latinas elected into the Nevada state legislature. There were 4 of us, total women of color, in 2011. And then when I was in the legislature, I looked around, I'm like, we have really poor representation of women here. You guys were like at 32%. Like with 4 more people, we could get to like over 50%. And so worked really hard with community groups on the ground to get our first female majority legislature in the history of the United States. So yeah, I've been around for a moment and people want to say that I'm the establishment. If you think Latina social workers are the problem in this world, I can't help you. But if you really want examples of change and where her leadership has shown up and fought for the people, then you can look at me, because that's what I've been doing for a long time.
Thank you, Teresa. Tammy?
I have the most clearest record of being an anti-establishment activist and campaign manager for at least a decade in the Silver State. I was a Bernie Sanders delegate to the state constitution in 2016 because I had an epiphany when I was working at a Popeyes late one night, and there was a bunch of flour all over the kitchen that I had to clean up as a cook. I heard that we were dealing with the greatest economic inequality in our nation's history. And that's when I discovered we are all a product of our environment. Political, economic, social policies designed to hurt the 99% of us while the 1% benefit. Warren Buffett said about a decade ago, yes, we have class warfare, and it's my class that's winning. So I very much have been an anti-establishment figure. The political spectrum has been shifting for decades. I believe the silver lining with Donald Trump is that that establishment is being destroyed internationally and domestically, and we have the opportunity of a lifetime to truly reform it in a way that is truly equitable, based on human rights, human dignity, and human freedom, and that is what my platform is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Greg?
Thank you. So I'm back from 2024, where I ran as a nonpartisan. I think I've been the shortest-lived Democrat party member, I think, in this panel. And so I definitely have not punched that ticket yet. I think during the last election I was criticized for being a closet Democrat. That got some laughs from my daughters and stuff. I don't know what I am. I hope by the end of this election I'll have a better idea. But I am, I'm a little lonely. I'm a little less lonely this time. We all went out for some drinks yesterday. And what I do feel like is there's a very noisy Democratic Party. And I feel like in 2026, that noise is going to start to have, a melody. And that melody means that we could do something in this district, which is to flip this district, to make this district matter in flipping Congress. Now, that is going to take the establishment Democrats, it's going to take the progressive Democrats, it's going to take every color hair of Democrats, and we're going to need to get a bunch of nonpartisans and even peel off a bunch of Republicans to make this happen. And it's happened at other times in this country. We had Reagan Democrats. This election is going to be about getting all those folks, establishment, progressive, everything else in between, together. And I just promise that whoever comes out of this primary, I will be backing them, and I want to flip this district, and I want to flip the House, and get Congress back to work and recover America. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Josh?
I definitely identify as anti-establishment. I helped organize this group of 5 anti-establishment Democrats, the People's Democrats. How do I define anti-establishment? An anti-establishment person is somebody who is coming from outside the system and is determined to change the system because that system has not delivered for us. And this is not to say that people who have come up through the establishment have done anything wrong. That is the expectation of how people are supposed to rise to the political system. But we have enough of those people in Congress. They are the ones who have led us to this place. And we need more people in Congress from outside the establishment, coming in with new ideas, who are willing to do things differently, to try to find ways to shake things up and change things. Because the way that we have been doing things are not working. And that is why so many people have lost faith in the system and have lost faith in us as a party. In order to restore that faith, we need to be starting to put different people into Congress who are going to take a different approach to things. That is something that I'm going to do. We've been talking a lot about all the things that we want to get done, but we've also been talking a lot about big money. The reason that it's so hard for us to get anything done is because big money controls everything and everybody. It's why everybody feels the system and everybody in it is corrupt. And until we fix that problem, we will struggle to get anything done. Which is why the centerpiece of my campaign is built around a constitutional amendment to get big money out of politics for good that I'm calling the Ban Big Money Amendment. And it is not just a symbolic gesture. It is meant to be the centerpiece of a strategic plan to inspire people to become single-issue voters on this issue. Because the only way to get this done is with a popular movement.
Thanks, Josh. Kathy?
I'm Kathy Durham. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a nana, I'm a great-grandma, I'm a teacher, I'm a proud rural Nevadan. Those are my labels. Those are about the only labels I like to even talk about. I've often been asked, are you running as this, or are you running as that? And I ask people to say, I tell people, ask me an issue, I'll tell you where I stand, and you can tell me what I am. I just don't really care for the labels because the labels are what divide us. And then if we can label ourselves and then fight amongst ourselves, it can keep us distracted from where the real fight is. And it's been mentioned before, it's class warfare. It's a top versus bottom fight right now. And so I think it's good that we have lots and lots of voices with different perspectives, different ideas, different backgrounds, coming and discussing and debating and criticizing and proposing ideas. That's what democracy looks like. I'm here to represent the people of Nevada, CD2, if that's what the people want. But again, the system, we have lost faith in the system, but I think that's because we've gotten distracted with the system. And we need to just go there and remember who we work for. We work for the people who elected us, and that's what I will do.
Thanks, Kathy. Mark?
Let's see. Am I anti-establishment? Well, I'm a punk. But more so than that, I'm a punk that listens to the lyrics. Yeah, I said it. And I know I'm dressed up like a news anchor right now, but I am wearing my combat boots. I just left the spikes at home. Now, to all my fellow punks out there, might I say, oi? Now, here's the thing. What does anti-establishment mean? Look, there's a reason in the punk community that they're counterculture. It's because they feel that there are people who are being marginalized. It doesn't have to just be them. It could be their sister, their brother. It could be their friend. It could be anybody in the community. The whole thing with punk community is that they want everyone to be a part of it. They want everyone to feel like they belong. If you ever felt marginalized, like you didn't matter, if you felt the system wasn't working for you, well, you're anti-establishment too. So yeah, am I anti-establishment? That is my core ethos. And it's something that I want to bring to everything that I do. I don't think I need to drag this on. That's enough.
Thanks, Mark. Matthew?
Well, I want to make sure I answer all 3 questions. So, Am I establishment or anti-establishment? Well, a lot of folks would think that I'm establishment because I've worked 3 presidential elections, I've worked 3 legislative sessions in Nevada, I was the executive director of the Nevada State Democratic Party, as well as the national field director for Blue Wave America. So you're hearing a lot of organizing work inside of the Democratic Party. While during my time doing this, I've also been organizing inside of progressive organizations. I've worked to make sure that we are making responsible decisions, speaking up when the establishment is wrong and when the party leadership is wrong. That doesn't mean I'm always in disagreement with them. They pass good legislation out of our state legislature. I've been a part of helping pass really great legislation. And I'm proud of that work, and I'm proud to have been able to work right there in legislature with Teresa Benitez Thompson and the first female majority legislature we ever had in the state of Nevada and the country. Now, the hard part of this is that I've seen the underbelly of the beast. I've worked inside of it. So I know who controls those, the thumbs of the power. I know who makes sure who can't make it through primary elections. I know where that is. And it's the folk, and who controls our elected officials? It's the folks who control the purse strings behind the scenes, the donor base, right? And as there's one person, there's 2 people, right? There's not a lot of them that are holding on to those strings and controlling that power. Now, that third question, so I don't know if I answered. I'm anti-establishment, even though I've worked inside of the establishment, because I believe in the future of this country, and that's why I'm running for office. Have I taken PAC money? And will I? Yeah, absolutely. I will not take corporate PAC money. There are good PACs, such as the LGBTQ Victory Fund, Blue Wave America, I accepted money from, Red Rural Organizing Program. I accepted money from the Able Dims PAC because it's a disability group. So yes, I will take that.
Thank you, Matthew. You've got the air horn today.
Morgan, could you repeat the question?
I'd be happy to. Several candidates for CD2 have billed themselves as anti-establishment. Do you consider yourself anti-establishment, establishment, or something in between? In your answer, please define what these terms mean to you and if you are receiving donations from any PACs, and if so, which PACs?
So I am a part of the anti-establishment group, People's Democrats, and I would definitely say that I am anti-establishment. I mean, since starting my race, I have been pressured from multiple sides to drop out. I have butted heads with the establishment leadership, which is, party leadership in Nevada. We have a very, very strong party leadership here in Nevada. I'm sure many of you guys have heard the term the Reed Machine, Democratic Party with all the unions and all of that. They have created a very tight-knit system. That's not always bad, but it is very difficult to navigate unless they kind of tap you and pull you into it. That is very difficult. No, so I am anti-establishment, and as far as PAC money goes, I have not taken any PAC money, but as Matthew said, they're not all PACs are bad. Many of them are grassroots funded. Many of them are for good causes. I will not be taking corporate PAC money or APAC money at any point ever, and I never have. And I think, here in Nevada, we have this huge issue with the gaming industry, and the mining industry has literally bought off almost every single one of our politicians at the state level and at the federal level. And that is a massive problem, and that they are also a part of the establishment, and they donate to both parties in our state to be able to do whatever they want here with no regulation, no oversight, and it has caused this massive corruption problem here. And I cannot forgive any politicians that have ever taken money from them in the past, now, or in the future, and I definitely think that, we, as I've said earlier, we can't be electing people that take corporate PAC money ever. And that is, the establishment is exactly that. It is taking this massive amount of money from the billionaires and the corporations. So yes, I am anti-establishment.
Thank you, Morgan. Samuel.
As also a member of the People's Democrats, one of the 5 members here that are part of the anti-establishment group, I don't have any, I'm not taking any PAC money, but same thing, not all PACs are an issue. It's corporate PACs. We're talking about corporate-funded politicians. And I think that goes into the heart of what anti-establishment is. It is the politicians, like we talked about earlier, that are for corporate money, for their own interests. They're the politicians that are enriching themselves in Congress by doing stock trading and insider trading. They're the politicians in Congress who have been accepting money from AIPAC and voting to send weapons to Israel. These are the people that are the establishment. These are the people that we're trying to oust, the people that we're trying to fight against. And as an anti-establishment Democrat, my goal is to never take corporate money and to speak up very loudly against people who are not fighting for the people of the United States and fighting just to enrich themselves.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Well, that concludes the questions portion of the event, and thank you, everyone. People were very much within the time for the most part. Now I'm going to move it on to closing statements. This is the opportunity for candidates to conclude by sharing a little about themselves. This is a free-for-all for them to tell you what they think you need to know about them, and hopefully with an emphasis on how we are going to flip this district. Some of our candidates have talked about that tonight, and I think that's just the overriding theme of what we want to accomplish with this tour, is talk directly to folks and how we're going to turn this district blue for the first time ever. So Teresa, you get to start.
Okay, so I'll start with who I am. I'm Teresa Benitez Thompson. I've lived in Reno since the age of 4, so I've been here solidly 44 years. I can't call myself native, but I think I'm just about as local as they come. Went to UNR. I did leave the state for 2 years. I gotta admit, I went away for 2 years. Got my master's degree at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor School of Social Work. I loved it, Michigan. I enjoyed my education there very much. But if you've been to the Midwest, you realize that when you go there, the sun goes away for 4 or 5 months, and there's just a dark, heavy cloud. And I realized I'm solar powered. I need to be where the sun is. I need sun every day. So I came back to Nevada. My husband and I have 4 children. We're raising all of our children here in Nevada. I'm a social worker, as I mentioned, by profession, and I worked in foster care for finding adoptive children or adoptive homes for children in foster care that were legal orphans, had to be removed for one reason or another. And I love that work that I did. I can't tell you how important that work was to me, working with the kids in foster care. I then did medical social work for 15 years, and I carried a rural route. So I had patients in Silver Springs, I had patients in Carson City, Fernley, Fallon, Stagecoach, Dayton. I went as far south as Douglas County and Fish Valley. And I learned a lot about what it means to respect people when you walk into their homes, and to meet them where they're at, and to value and appreciate the lives that they live. And I've taken that with me throughout my career. I served 12 years in the legislature. I always focused on policies that would benefit people, voted to increase the minimum wage in Nevada, voted for paid family leave, voted to expand educational resources for our kids, voted for increased behavioral health needs. I care about the condition of people, and that's the type of policy I'll focus on.
Thank you, Teresa. Oh, yeah.
Gami Enriquez, there are 7 elements that make me truly unique and the best to win the primary and the general election. Number 1, I have unique lived experience. As a result of economic inequality, I dropped out of college, became homeless, went through the system, survived on SNAP, minimum wage, got my master's in public administration and policy from the University of Nevada, Reno. I have over 20 years of international relations and political science experience. Number 3, I have the most bold, clear, universal set of economic policies. $1,300 transfer paid for by billionaires that do not pay their fair share to address the high cost and our affordability challenges. Also, I understand that the power of the people is stronger than organized money. We saw that as the people ousted Mark Amadei. I'm also the only Latino in the race. And finally, not only am I a small business owner, I have also been door dashing for the last 5 years across the entire district, which means I've been building relationships with small business owners, working folks, and doing voter outreach to everyone, particularly our Hispanic and Latino brothers and sisters. And finally, what makes me truly independent is I look at the data and I do not center myself on ideology. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gami. Greg?
Hey, I come from the cycling world, and there's a big race. It's called the Tour de France. And, you know, no Frenchman has won the Tour de France for over 40 years. And that's because a lot of the French teams and the French riders, they're all competing to be the first Frenchman in the Tour de France. And that strategy hasn't worked for them for winning the overall. I kind of took note of that. 2 years ago, I came to the Democrats and I said, hey, you know, it's been really tough for anybody running for this district. This district was carved out as basically a safe seat for the Republicans so that the Democrats could pretty well hold the other 3 seats. It was a concession made. It was a kind of a deal with the devil. And I asked, I said, what do you think? Do you think it would be better if I ran as a Democrat or as a nonpartisan? And, you know, we took a roll of the dice and we tried nonpartisan. We got Mark Amodei down to 55%, his lowest vote tally. But still, during a year of a red wave, it wasn't that close. This year is different. Mark's out. We can argue about why Mark's out, but he's out. It's an open race. I was committed to this race before Mark dropped out. I'm having a hell of a good time now because it's not lonely. Last time it was very lonely. My focus is whoever comes out of this primary, we want to flip this seat. We want to flip this seat because it's both good for the state, it's good for the people here, but it is super important for the country because we want to flip the House. This district is tough. We need 20% plus turnout for the Democrats, 20% down for the Republicans, and we need to win 51% of the nonpartisans, and we flip this seat. I'm here to work as hard as I can to do that, whether it's me or someone else in this room. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Josh?
All right, well, so what Greg just described is an example of establishment politics that I don't like, which is where somebody like Greg gets together with the party leadership and they decide how they're going to do things. I don't think that's what we should have primaries. I think primaries should be like this, and Democrats should not be waved off. But anyway, I'm a native Nevadan. I was born in Reno to Nevada parents, but I haven't lived here very long. And I know it's crazy for me to do this because of that, but I'm no stranger to that because I am bipolar. I don't want that to freak people out. I have spent most of my life learning how to be this way, and I understand it. And we need it because I have been thinking outside the box my whole life because I have no choice. I've done a lot. I've been a physicist. I got my PhD in physics at age 45. I have trained AI. I have pushed real change through large organizations. I helped to change the way that introductory physics was taught at the University of Texas at Austin. I was one of the leaders of that. And in order to flip this district, like Greg said, we need to appeal to nonpartisan voters. That is the key to this district. And I am entirely focused on fixing the system, getting the Republic working for us the way that it's supposed to. And that is something that unites people across the political spectrum. It doesn't matter who I talk to, what the issue is. When I ask them, how likely do you think it is that we will get a real solution, a meaningful solution to that issue through Congress, almost to a person across the spectrum, the answer is no. I believe this is the biggest issue that the polls are not picking up on. We need to run on fixing the system, which is why I am so focused on getting big money out of politics. Because until we get that done, we will struggle to do anything else. And that is a long-term project, which is why I'm trying to launch a popular movement with this campaign to get this started. And I encourage everybody to help me do that.
Thanks, Josh. Kathy?
I'm Kathy Durham. I'm a teacher from West Wendover, Nevada. I was born in Salt Lake City. Well, I was born in Dugway, Utah. It's a military base outside of Salt Lake. I was born into a military family. I'm very proud of the long history of veterans in my family, going all the way down to my grandchildren today. It's where it developed my sense of patriotism. Living in a military family, we moved around a lot. We landed on a farm up in Camas, and I learned the rural life. I learned what it was to ranch 23 acres of land. I learned the importance of water rights, cattle grazing, land rights, all of that stuff that goes with the ranching life. I lived a lot of different lives. I've worked a lot of different jobs. I finally ended up finding my passion, which was teaching. I became a city council member, learned about politics through teaching government, history, and economics, and also serving on my council. When I was on the council, we were able to diversify our economy. We were able to build a new begin the fire department, and we were able to expand businesses and bring money into our school. Over $1 million in the last probably 8 years have gone to my school for what we have done. For too long, the government that I teach, checks and balances, separation of powers, the rule of law, that is not what is going on in DC. And the dark chapters that I teach in history, that's what we are repeating. So over a year ago, I got in this race to stand up for Nevada and to go and make government work for the people rather than the top 1%. I've been traveling this district. I put, since January, over 20,000 miles on my car, going back and forth from Wendover to Reno and every town in between, letting people know that I'm ready to fight for them. Vote Kathy Durham.
Thanks, Kathy.
So I was an archaeologist. That's why I moved out here. I did that for about a decade, and I have walked all over this state. And it's honestly a lot of fun to be able to hit up some of these places again. I've been talking to all these guys about the places that I want to take them, some of the bars, and the train museum, one of my big things. But I decided that I needed to change up my life a bit. The archaeology doesn't come to you, you have to go to it, and I wanted a family. So I started up my own business from the ground up, and I've been doing that for the last 12 years. I've got guys that depend on me, and it has been getting harder, as I'm sure you are aware with some of the things I've been talking about. Rents have been going up, prices for gas have been going up, and that's not just my stuff, that's them too. I'm worried about them, and I'm worried about the rest of the people, not only in my state, but in the country. Things have been happening that I do not recognize my country anymore. And so I finally decided, okay, you got to do something, man. You have to do something. So I filed the paperwork, and 4 days later, Mark Amade dropped out. You're all welcome. But it's not enough. Everybody over here has been talking about how we do need to stand up to the establishment. We do need to change things, and I agree. We do. Now, some of the things that I want everyone's life to be easier. But there are ways of doing that. I want massive infrastructure spending. We are long overdue for a national rail line, and all of the other developed countries have these, we just don't. This could bring jobs and technology to our country, help with logistics. I want universal health care. That's not even a question. If you aren't on board with that, I'm not your guy. And I want for housing prices to come down. The price of living should not be anywhere what it is right now, and again, that is subject on us by the wealthy. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Matthew.
Hello, everyone. Matthew Fonkin. I was born and raised in Arkansas on a rural horse farm. Mom said I was riding horses since before I was born and was handing fence clips to my dad when I was 2. So, I helped build the farm. We held, out in rural Arkansas, it's a real special life out there. I know what it's like to drive long distances for healthcare. I know what it's like when you run out of broccoli. Well, sorry, you're not running down to the grocery store real quick for it. So there's a lot of, there's a lifestyle to living rural, and it will always be with me, whether I live urban or not. I'll tell you, Reno is the biggest city I've ever lived in my life. So, and that's not that big. So, but, in life, growing up, working on the horse farm, building my own Boy Scout troop with my brother and my friends, went to the University of Arkansas, first in my family to go to college, worked my way through college, had to drop out because of the recession, worked my way up through the restaurant industry, from a dishwasher, becoming a trained chef, to then becoming a general manager of fine dining restaurants, and did that for a decade. And then moved out here to Reno in 2016 to get involved in politics for the first time in my life. And I built from the ground up again. I remember when I got out here, they gave me the hardest turf, is what they said, to organize. I had 0 volunteers, and I kept trying, I kept pushing, I kept calling, I kept doing the work. And that is the thing that has gotten me where I am today, is that I've never given up. I continue to fight for everything I have, and I continue to do it because I have the drive for my family, my friends, and my community, and I want to make sure that we're all being protected and have brighter futures. I'm Matthew Fonken. I'm running for Congressional District 2. I hope to earn your vote. If you have any more questions about me, please come to me. Go to my website, fonkenfornevada.com, and on your way out, grab a Honkin' for Fonken bumper sticker.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan, I'm sorry you have to follow that again.
I know. So I am Morgan Wadsworth, and I was born and raised right here in northern Nevada. My family has been here actually since Nevada was a state. We came here in 1859, and we have been cattle ranchers and union workers for a very, very long time. I'm actually a first-generation college student because of that, and I can confidently say I am the only one in this room that has lived in rural and urban Nevada specifically. So, you know, when it comes to flipping this district, I never thought it was unflippable. Not even last summer when I first thought about running, and when I very sadly gave up my dreams of medicine to go into politics, because working in the hospitals in Nevada was a very soul-crushing experience to see exactly how broken they are and how badly we are suffering. I mean, Nevada has been ranked near the bottom for healthcare since before I was born, and we have made absolutely no progress as a country or as a state. So I decided, you know, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of what I'm looking at for our state and for our country, and I'm going to step up and I'm going to do something about it. So I did. I cried for 6 weeks because I always wanted to be a doctor, so it was very, very hard for me. But I am very glad that I did it, and I don't regret it at all. And I think, you know, the way to flip this district is you just have to understand it. And, you know, 20 years ago, Jill Derby, she was also, you know, multi-generational ranching roots Democrat here in CD2, and she made this district competitive. And I think we could do it again. And I talked to her recently, and I asked her if she thinks we could do it again, and she agreed. And I told her, you know I can win the general, and she agreed with that too. So I think that we've always had a chance, and especially this year, we will flip this district. And I really look forward to flipping it, whoever it is. And I think, you know, now we really need to look to the future and to change and hope.
Thanks, Morgan. Samuel.
My name is Samuel White. I was born and raised in Carson City. I've been a working class Nevadan my entire life. I've been all over this state. I've worked fencing off abandoned mines. I spent some time as a violence firefighter. I currently am a bus driver. And I have been disappointed over and over again by the representatives that I've been having to vote for in my elections. I have been fed up and tired of this system where I've had friends crying because they're stuck and not being able to afford housing, not being able to afford their car, not being able to afford food, while they're working full time, because we're stuck in this system where our representatives don't actually represent us. And so I wanted to make that change. So I am here to represent the people of Nevada, and I'm doing that through the I do that through the Democratic Party. Sorry. So I'm doing that through the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, there is not a third viable option. That is something I would like to change. I would like to get ranked choice voting, not just in Nevada, but across the United States, so that we can have viable third-party platforms and viable third-party candidates who actually will represent the people that they're supposed to. Thank you.
Thanks, Samuel, for closing us out. All right, thanks again, everyone, for coming, and I want to thank the candidates. I don't know about you all, this is our second stop. I am having so much fun. This is really warms my heart. I feel like we're finally getting some grassroots democracy. We have a choice this June, And I'm really excited to bring these folks out into the rural Nevada because that's our job. We're the Rural Renegades from the Nevada Democratic Caucus. Please feel free to see us if you want to join up with us, and feel free to chat with the candidates, and I'll look forward to seeing you all on Saturday in Elko. Thanks again. Love you all.
Let's give a hand to Cynthia and Devin for putting all this on and organizing everything.
Very good. So we're coming here now.